Hi, my name is Aya. You're watching Aya Reads, and we're towards the end of June, meaning, of course, we're halfway through the year. And as you could probably see by your timeline, people are starting to post their like mid-year book freakout tags or best and worst books of the year. So I don't really do the book mid-year freakout tag. So I'm gonna just talk about the 5 worst books I read this year and my 5 best books this year. As always, I'm gonna put in this disclaimer: reading is very much subjective. So there's a possibility that I might talk negatively about a book that you love. Please don't take it personally, okay? These are just my opinions. Of course, it's completely fine to love a book that I didn't like. That is completely okay. And I'll have timestamps below, so definitely feel free if you just wanted to hear about my best books, then feel free to skip, because I'm going to start with my worst books of the year and I'm going to end on a positive note and talk about my best books of the year. I have 5 of each category, so let's talk about my 5 worst books of the year. So before I get started, if I did a review for any of these books or if they are in some kind of reading vlog, they will either be in the cards or in the descriptions. So check those videos out if you want more information. So my least favorite book I read this year was Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. This one I did a reading vlog for, so you can see in real time my deterioration while reading this book. This is Emily Henry's newest release, and I just didn't like it. So this book, you follow this girl named Alice, and she is, she's been dreaming of her big writing break, and she contacts this reclusive former socialite named Margaret Ives. So she gets in contact with her. Margaret invites her to where she lives, and when she gets there, she realizes that a Pulitzer Prize winning biographer, Hayden Anderson, is also there. So she thinks that she doesn't stand a chance because technically she doesn't have the accolades he does. But Alice surprises them both when telling them that she wants both of them to have like a month trial run. So they will start their biography about Alice, and then at the end of the month she'll decide who actually will get the contract to write her biography. And while they're doing that, Alice and Hayden fall in love, and you also get a lot of talk about Alice and her past and her family's past, like her father's past and her grandfather's past. I really did not enjoy this book. First of all, to me, this is very much marketed as a romance, and it's not a romance in my opinion. This is, I don't know, it's very much in the category of Evelyn Hugo, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but in my opinion, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo did it 100 times better than this book. I just didn't really care about these characters. I didn't care about Alice. I didn't care about her past, and I for sure did not care about her father's past or her grandfather's past. Also, if we're talking about the romance here, I didn't feel like the romance was that compelling. I didn't feel like the romance was balanced at all. Everything was 100% on Hayden's terms, and Alice just had no spine. She went along with everything, and I truly didn't understand why she wanted to be with him so much. So honestly, too little things were working for me. It was boring to me. I really did not enjoy this book, and I would definitely not recommend it, but it has a pretty high rating. It has a 4.03 average rating, and to be honest, I don't know. I think I would have been less mad had it been marketed as like a mystery or something else. But if you look at it, like, it's romance, it's fiction, contemporary romance, like historical fiction or mystery doesn't even, sorry, the sun is coming in and out. So, I mean, I think I would have been less disappointed had it been marketed as like a general fiction, but it wasn't. So therefore, my expectations are set for a romance novel, which this for sure wasn't a romance in my opinion. Moving on to Enigma by Rue Nix. So this was actually my first Rue Nix, and even though this is one of the worst books I read, it hasn't completely soured me on the author. I would definitely be willing to try another book by her, so definitely let me know which book you want me to read. This one I also did a reading vlog for, but this book you follow Salem and Kaz. And Salem, her sister committed suicide 2 years ago, but she doesn't really believe that her sister actually committed suicide. At the time of her sister committing the suicide, her sister was going to this prestigious university. So now 2 years later, Salem is going to that university to try and find out what happened to her sister. While she's there trying to find answers, she gets entangled with Cass, who is also looking for answers, and both their questions might lead them to similar answers. So they start working together and they fall in love in the meantime. And this is like a dark academia story. This is definitely like, it's set in this gloomy town, in this gloomy university. So I would say if you're still interested in this book, even though it is one of my worst books I read, I would recommend you read it during the fall time. But anyway, I really didn't love this. In fact, I'm going to compare this later to one of my favorite books, and I just think that book did a similar plot so much better. I just didn't really love this book. I didn't like either character. I felt like they really didn't have any chemistry. I just felt like she didn't really do a good job in the characterization of the main male character, because he was supposed to be like this dark hero who was this dangerous guy, and to me, I could not take him seriously at all. And because his character was lacking, I also didn't really believe in the romance, because I just couldn't understand why she fell in love with him, and I also couldn't really understand why he fell in love with her. Also, this guy thought he could fix all her problems just by fucking her, which I also don't like that. Like, I want communication, like at least help her through her. So I mean, I get it, it's fine. Like, I like a scene once in a while when like, I read a book recently where this girl was afraid of water and then he ends up fucking her in the water, which, I mean, I get that, but not if it's like your only fix for her issues. Then that does not a romance make. And I don't know. I did not enjoy this book. I also felt like a lot of this book was tell rather than show, and if that's the case, then I also don't tend to love those. So overall, I mean, and I realize this now that I'm talking about it, I don't really remember a lot about this book. So if you want more concrete thoughts, then check out my review for this one. Next is Maddest Obsession by Danielle Laurie. So this one I'm reading for the vlog that is coming up after this video. So it's gonna be in the next video I post. And this one I'm so sad about, because I'm reading it for a video where I read obsessive heroes, and this is the most obsessed hero of them all, you would think. And like, it's literally in the title. Anyway, this is the second book in the Maid series, which is a mafia romance series, and you follow Gianna and Christian. And Gianna is like this mafia princess. She used to be married, like she was married to this very much way older guy. Like, in fact, her stepson is older than her. That is how old her husband is. And while she's with her first husband, she meets Christian, and they have this like thing going on. He's a dirty fed, and they are kind of antagonistic towards each other, but both of them are also kind of drawn to each other. Eventually, her first husband dies, and it seems like Christian and Gianna will finally have something, but then they have like this one sexual interaction, then he leaves for 3 years, and in that time she ends up getting married to somebody else. But like, she gets married to like the oldest, like the guy that is closest to his grave. They don't really have a real marriage, her and her second husband. I don't think they even I don't think they had sex. So eventually Christian comes back, and it's gonna be that romance. He is supposed to be like this obsessed hero who would do anything and everything to have her. And to me, it felt like that just wasn't the case. Because if you were an obsessed hero who would do anything and everything to have her, then you would have prevented her from marrying her second husband. And I don't feel like this book did enough to convince me that he literally could not do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the book didn't provide enough of a reason why he couldn't do that. So in that case, then how obsessed are you? You know what I mean? Also, I felt like this character, like this female character, and I solely blame the author for this, she made her the dumbest character ever. Like, I have not read this dumb of a character in a while. And when I feel like she could have, like, she had all the fixings to be an amazing, feisty heroine, and she did her dirty, in my opinion. Like, the things that came out of her mouth, her aspirations, which she had none, just made her this shallow character who lacked personality, who lacked hobbies, who lacked a goal in life. If there's an obsessed hero, I need to understand his obsession, and I truly didn't. Like, the only reason he was obsessed with her is because she's beautiful, but then he was beautiful. Like, he had like lines and lines of women who wanted to be with him. So what's so special about her? And the author tries to explain it in that, oh yeah, she's different. Like, she's not like other girls. She's the only girl in the world who did not instantly fall to his feet the moment she saw him. But that, to me, it still does not explain it. And he had this big secret. So that was a secret that, even though this was dual point of view, so I also don't know why this book was dual point of view, but that secret kept getting dragged on and dragged on and dragged on, and we only found out what the secret was at the very end of the book, like literally the second to last chapter. And when it was finally revealed, I feel like it wasn't given the weight it was supposed to have, because it was like it needed to be given more weight than it was given at the end. And it didn't give, since it was pushed back towards the very end of the book, it wasn't given the time the secret needed for it to be digested by the readers and the characters. I did not like that either. So there's just too many things that I did not really love about this book, so I ended up giving it 2 stars. Another one, I will admit that this, like, it's my worst book, but I would still 100% recommend it to anybody watching, honestly, because this is definitely a me problem, and it's Transcendence by Shay Savage. So this one I read for my Popular Books of 2014 vlog, which I'll leave that linked for you. This is a caveman romance about this caveman named Ed, who's literally, he is a Neanderthal. He doesn't speak, he will never comprehend language. And one day, so this is single point of view, you only get Ed's point of view. One day this girl shows up, and the reader knows it's probably, like, it's a girl from modern day times who somehow, some way transported back into caveman times. So she keeps talking to him, he doesn't understand all these sounds that come out of her mouth, and all he wants to do is put a baby inside of her. He thinks that's his mate, and she needs to get pregnant, basically. And to me, this was not a long book. It was only 290 pages, but I think I would have enjoyed this more had it been a novella, because this was very repetitive. Like, their lives are very boring, because obviously it is. They're literally cave people. Like, what can they do? They wake up in their cave, they go out and find food, and then they go back into their cave, have sex, sleep, and then their day repeats over and over and over again. And that was just very boring to read, in my opinion. Plus, for me, I really, like, as you could see, I really need dialogue in my romances. I just do. Like, I need to understand why these people fell in love. So that is one of the reasons why, oh, he's hot or she's hot is not enough of a reason for me. It's not a good enough reason to explain why you fell in love or why you're obsessed with somebody. Same goes for this one. These two couldn't communicate, so then I could not really believe in their romance. To me, this felt like, oh yeah, these two fell in love because they were the only one the other one had. Like, if there was a different girl that time traveled and showed up at Ed's cave, he would fall in love with her too. And if Beth time traveled to a different caveman's cave, she would also fall in love with him. And to be fair to Ed, he was very sweet. Like, he was, like, adorable in my opinion. Like, I could understand why she inevitably became endeared to him. But if I was Beth, I would do as sweet as he was, I would do anything and everything in my power to try and get back to modern day times, because I could not really, like, I could not give up everything I have now to go live in a cave with somebody who cannot even communicate with me. So like I said, this is completely personal. I get why this is beloved. I get why this stood the test of time. And I'm definitely not bashing you if you loved it, because I can definitely understand why people love this book, but it was just not the book for me, and that's fine too. The last book I want to talk about is the only book I gave 3 stars, but this might actually be the worst of them all. It's Phantom by H.D. Carlton. Once again, I reviewed this in its own vlog. This, to me, should have been a 100-page novella. This is over 300 pages, and it was unnecessary to me. This is not really a romance. It doesn't end in an HEA. And once again, this is another one of those books where I don't understand why these two fell in love with each other. So anyway, this is the prequel to the Cat and Mouse duet. And I'm gonna preface this right here. I have not read the Cat and Mouse duet yet, but at the time of picking this up, it was not clear to me that you had to have read the Cat and Mouse duet before reading this one. Having said all that, I am planning on reading that duet, hopefully in August. We'll see if I can manage. Anyway, you follow, so basically this is Adeline's grandmother's story. So apparently in the Cat and Mouse duet, you get these diary entries of the grandmother and her stalker. So that is basically this book. So you follow Gigi and Ronaldo, and this takes place during World War II. And Gigi doesn't have the best marriage. Her husband has been cheating on her. Her husband is, because of his drinking, he has put them into a lot of debt. And because of that, he has borrowed money from the mafia. So now he and his entire family are on the mafia's radar. So Ronaldo, who's like a consigliere, or however you pronounce that, he goes to John's house, her husband, to scout the place out, and he sees Gigi and he immediately becomes obsessed with Gigi, okay? He thinks she's like the most beautiful woman in the world, so he starts stalking her. And she eventually sees him and she calls him the Phantom. So he basically just spends his entire days just watching her. Eventually he does go into her house and they start their romance, but really it's just them fucking each other over and over and over again. But my biggest problem with this book is the author did not convince me why these two loved each other. Because in my opinion, if Ronaldo showed up to another target's house and his wife was equally as beautiful as Gigi, then he would have fallen in love with her. And for Gigi, who had no personality either, anyway, if some handsome, mysterious, dangerous guy showed up at her house to stalk her, she also would have fallen in love with him, because we never got to see any relationship development. I was not convinced that these two loved each other at the end. And I also, I felt like Gigi had no personality, and I thought Ronaldo was not a good guy at all. And I get it, he's in the mafia, but I've read a lot of mafia romances. I get that they're at their core criminals, I get that. But even if I'm reading a mafia romance, I still need to root for you. And this guy shot 2 women in the head, one of which he had slept with before. And at that point I was like done with it. I was like, fuck you, Ronaldo, I hope you fucking die. So, but I still gave it 3 stars because it was entertaining. I was interested to see what's gonna happen with these two, but hopefully the cat and mouse duet is better than this one. Moving on to my best books I read this year. This for now is not really in any particular order. So the first one is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. As you can see, I got like the special edition hardback because I loved it so much. This I also read for my popular books of 2014 video. So this book, you follow Archer and Bree. And Bree arrives at this small town after a tragedy. And on one of her first days, she meets this guy who doesn't speak to her and she thinks he's kind of rude. And when she asks about him, people tell her, oh yeah, that's Archer. He's our town recluse. We think he's deaf. So she knows sign language because her father was deaf. And she makes it kind of her mission to befriend Archer. So she goes to his house and she's like, you know what, I can teach you sign language. And he tells her, I do know sign language. Turns out that he's not deaf, he is speechless. This is basically their romance of her being like the only one in town who gives him a chance and him falling in love with her. I really love this book. It was so beautiful to me. I can definitely understand why it stood the test of time. I loved Archer. He is a virgin hero. So he really, like, when he was 7, he also had something tragic happen to him that ended up with him being unable to speak. So it's something with his vocal cords. So he lost his parents too at that time. And then he lived with his recluse uncle. So he never really had any real interactions with other people aside from his uncle. So with Bree, it's like a teach me book. She's teaching him all the ways to like everything that comes with a romance basically. And I really loved it. I love both of them. I was rooting for them so hard. And I really love this book. It was beautiful. Next is Beautiful Venom by Rena Kent. And this is the book I talked about that I compared to Enigma. So basically this is about Dahlia and Kane. And Dahlia, something happened to her sister that ended up with her sister in a coma. And the only clue Dahlia has as to what happened to her sister is this mysterious cult-like group called Vancor. So she kind of makes it her mission to infiltrate Vancor to find out what happened to her sister. And she knows the only into Vancor are one of the 3 guys in the hockey team. So eventually Kane realizes what she's doing and he asks her if she wants to go with him to initiation. She does, and initiation, one of the things at initiation is basically Kane fucking her against her will and it being filmed. And while that's happening, so obviously that's very much dubious consent, even though she does have a safe word, but she also knows that if she safe words out, she'll never find out what happens to her sister, and that's not really an option for her. Eventually, Kane is very intrigued with Dahlia because he realizes that part of her did like what he was doing to her, and she also realizes that too. So it's their romance. I really loved it. I love in these dark romances where the girl actually has a spine, and I felt like Dahlia was a very, very smart female main character, so I was rooting for her. I felt like she was a good fit for Kane because I think a weaker girl, he would have walked all over, so I did enjoy that. And, you know, I love Rena Kent, like, what can I say? So the comparison, as you can see, like, these are both two sisters who go to this prestigious university to find out what happened to their sister. Both these books take place, like, this university is tied to this town. I don't know, I felt like there were a lot of similar things, but this one did it so much better. So I would say if you're debating, if you're interested in both of them, just read this one and skip this one, in my opinion. But yeah, I really loved it. And like with Rena Kent, so I'm slowly making my way through her backlist. She sets up future couples so well in her books. So she did that too. Like, I think I gave this book 5 stars. Obviously, it is one of my favorites, but I do have a feeling that the second and third book I'm gonna love even more than this one because she set those couples up so very well. And this is obviously a sports romance. I did feel like she did a good job with the balance of that. So there was sports, obviously, but not too much. And I just loved it very much. And yeah, I also obviously did a review of this one. Enchantra by Kaylee Smith. So this one, I did a vlog for this one and Phantasma. I read Phantasma and I gave it 3 stars, and I was so hesitant to pick this one up because I was like, okay, I might not like this, but I ended up really loving it. So this book, you follow Genevieve or Vivi and Rowan. So Vivi is Ophelia's sister from the first book, and you have seen her around. She was this fun character that I definitely enjoyed, so I was looking forward to her book. This book, Ophelia sends her on a trip to Rome, but Vivi goes with other intentions. She wants to find out more about her mother who died in the first book, and she loves snooping around, so she found this correspondence between her mom and this other guy who lives in Italy. So her real plan is to go to that house and find out more about her mother. So she goes there, and when she gets to the house, she meets this guy who tells her that she needs to leave. She's not welcome, but she kind of bypasses him and enters the house, and therefore she seals her fate because she entered the house on the spring equinox. And when you're inside the house, you are forced to play in these deadly games that the Silvers have to play. So this family is called the Silvers, and because of a deal their father made, the children are forced to battle each other to the death until one victor is left. But technically they don't die, they just have to spend their year in hell because they're immortal. But Vivi is not immortal. So if she actually dies in the game, she will die forever, basically. So Rowan knows that there's a loophole that a married couple can play together. So he tells her that they need to get married. So this is also a marriage of convenience book, which of course I really love. So it's basically them two having to fight his siblings to win, basically. And while that's happening, you find out more about the family, and you find out, you know, ways to get them out of this competition. I really loved it. I felt like, so one of the big things, as you can see, I cannot stand a female main character who has no personality. So in the first book, Ophelia, she didn't have a personality. I just didn't enjoy her that much. And it made sense for her character why she did not have a personality. But Vivi had a personality and a half. She was very entertaining to me. I laughed out loud a lot throughout this book. I loved her relationship with Rowan. I really like Rowan as a character. He's a shadow daddy, so he uses his shadows, and especially during sex, he uses it in a lot of creative ways that I definitely enjoyed reading about. And I just had the best time. You can see in my vlog that I was giggling and kicking my feet while reading this book. So this was just highly entertaining to me. Will this be like my favorite book I read like at the end of the year? I don't know. We'll have to see what kind of books I read for the rest of the year, but it was highly entertaining. And I do remember saying in that vlog that this was my favorite book I read at that point. And it was like, it was so much fun. Shield of Sparrows by Daphne Perry. If I have to pick like my all-time favorite, this might be it. But like I said, I wasn't gonna pick favorite, so I should just stop. So this is a fantasy romance. And in this world, you have 5 different kingdoms. And years ago, because of these winged monsters that basically kill anything and everything in their wake, these kingdoms made deals with each other that right before this, so these monsters are called the Crux. Right before the Crux migration, they have to have the Shield of Sparrow. So basically, their daughters have to get married to the princes of another kingdom. And our main character, Odessa, she always thought her sister was going to be the sparrow. That was just clear to everybody. Even though she's the oldest one, she was never supposed to be the sparrow, because her sister is basically like the typical fantasy romance heroine. She knows, like, she's strong, she's fierce, she's fearsome, she's a warrior, whereas Odessa doesn't really know all that. She has no interest in that, and she is just not that good at all those things. But when the prince from Tora shows up, he tells everybody that he has no interest in her sister. He wants her. So now she's forced to go with him to Tora. And on the night before she leaves, her father tells her that he needs her to spy for him. And she was not trained for that. She doesn't really know how to go about it. So he spends her last night trying to teach her anything to give her a shot, basically. And when she gets there, she basically falls in love with the guardian, who is a fearsome warrior from Tora. She also kind of learns more about Tora, and she realizes, maybe my dad is not really a good guy. And I really enjoyed it. I loved it so much. I loved all the characters in here. I loved both the main characters, but also a lot of the side characters. I enjoyed the world building. It wasn't too much, but I felt like she did a good job, especially since she's a contemporary author, really. I loved how, like, the world she created, and I loved the lore. I loved the monsters. I loved the mystery. I just loved a lot of things about this book. I loved the romance too. And I just love that even the little things that I did not love, like at one point, there was a chunk of this book that was kind of like a slog to get through, but I love how when I closed the book, I realized, okay, that was for a purpose, and I understood why she did that. There's a little girl named Evie in here that I also really enjoyed. Also, I listened to this book on audio too, and I also really enjoyed the narrator. I especially love the way she narrated the little girl, so yeah, I would say Tora really reminds me of the Bridge Kingdom, and I do feel like both the prince and the guardian also really remind me of Aaron in that book. So I would highly recommend this book either way, but especially if you love the Bridge Kingdom, I would definitely recommend this one. And last but most certainly not least is The Crimson Moth. And I also put in The Rebel Witch, even though technically The Rebel Witch was a 4.5, but really this entire story I really enjoyed, and definitely a favorite of the year so far. So I read The Crimson Moth for my reading BookTube's favorite romances of 2024, and I could definitely understand why this was such a beloved book, and I was so happy to read it. So this is a young adult book, but I mean, I think any age can really enjoy this book. So you follow Rune, who is secretly the Crimson Moth, but everybody thinks she's this like aristocrat, this vapid girl who only loves like clothes, basically. But like I said, secretly she's a witch, and she's been saving these witches from execution because before 2 years ago, the witches ruled the land, and these 3 witch queens ruled the land, and they were ruthless. They were tyrants, basically. So 2 years ago, the humans had this revolution where they killed the witch queens and took over. And ever since then, witches have been hunted down and executed. And one of the leaders of the rebellion was Gideon. And Rune, to try and save one of her witch friends, is trying to seduce Gideon. And Gideon, while that's happening, he thinks that Rune might be the Crimson Moth. So he also kind of seduces her to try and find out if she actually is the Crimson Moth. And this basically their enemies to lovers romance. And I really loved it. I think Kristen did a very, very good job, because at the end of the day, I was rooting for both of them. Like, I could definitely understand Rune's point of view, but I could also understand Gideon's point of view. Like, everything he went through at the hands of these witch queens, like, I can understand why he would want revenge and why he would think every single witch out there is evil. So I think she did a good job. I think it was a nuanced conversation. Even like for a young adult book, I was very, very, very impressed. And that's why I always say, I think the fantasy romances, I think for contemporary, yes, there's definitely a difference between young adult contemporary and adult contemporary. But for romantasy books, I think there's not that big of a difference between the adult versions and the young adult versions. Mainly, the biggest difference is the explicit sex. They did have sex in this book, and it was kind of like a sexy book, but obviously they didn't go in detail, and that was fine to me. I really love this book, and I would highly, highly recommend it. And I loved the duology. I think this was perfect as a duology. It didn't need more books, so I really loved it. So there's that. So those were the 5 books that I hated and the 5 books that I loved this year. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were. Also, would really love to know, like, what were some of your worst books you read this year and what were some of your best books you read this year. I would really love to know that. If you do want to say that you were here, but you don't want to leave an actual comment, leave me some sort of witch emoji for the Crimson Moth duology. Oh yeah, by the way, the Crimson Moth is called the Heartless Hunter in the US, by the way. So anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely make sure to leave a like if you did, and thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.